Ethan had always believed that time was a linear path, a river flowing steadily from past to future. But everything changed the night he first activated the Chronos device, a sleek contraption that hummed with a faint blue light and promised the impossible, the ability to travel across centuries. With a mixture of excitement and trepidation, he stepped into the swirling vortex of energy, leaving behind the familiar streets of his present-day city. When the light subsided, he found himself standing in a completely different world. Cobblestone streets glistening under gas lamps, horse-drawn carriages rattling over uneven roads, and women and men dressed in flowing garments that belonged to a bygone era. The air smelled of wood smoke and earth, intoxicating and unfamiliar, and Ethan felt the thrilling rush of stepping into history itself. As he wandered cautiously through the narrow streets, absorbing the sights and sounds, he noticed a girl standing near a fountain, her expression a mix of curiosity and caution. She wore a delicate dress of soft lace and flowing fabric, her hair tied back with a ribbon that shimmered in the lamplight. The moment their eyes met, Ethan felt an inexplicable jolt, as if time itself had paused. Her gaze was clear, intelligent, and alive with a spark that seemed to pierce through the centuries separating them. Though she had never seen a man like him, dressed in modern clothing with gadgets no one in her era could comprehend, she did not flinch or shy away. Instead, she studied him carefully, a hint of wonder in her eyes. "Who are you?" she asked softly, her voice carrying the elegance of her time, but tinged with genuine curiosity. Ethan's mind raced, knowing that he could not explain his true origin without sounding mad. Yet he also realized that this encounter was extraordinary, rare, a meeting between two souls destined to collide across the boundaries of time. I'm Ethan," he stammered. "I come from far away, from another time." Her eyes widened slightly, disbelief mixing with fascination, but she did not step back. Instead, she tilted her head and offered a small, tentative smile, as though she sensed that this was a meeting that could alter both their fates. As they began talking, Ethan noticed the subtle grace of her movements, the intelligence in her speech, and the warmth that radiated from her in a way that transcended centuries. She introduced herself as Leela, a young woman of remarkable curiosity and courage, living in a time when life was constrained by societal expectations and the rigid rules of her era. The contrast between them was staggering, his mind filled with knowledge of the future, hers steeped in the traditions and customs of the past. Yet, despite the differences in their worlds, a bond began to form in that first fleeting encounter, a connection that would defy time itself. As the evening deepened and the gas lamps cast long shadows across the cobblestone streets, Ethan realized that his journey had become something far more significant than a mere experiment in time travel. Meeting Leela had awakened emotions he had never anticipated. Curiosity evolving into fascination, fascination into admiration, and admiration into a quiet, tentative affection. He knew that the days and nights ahead would challenge not only his understanding of time, but also the very nature of love, loyalty, and destiny. And with that realization, a thrill of both fear and excitement surged through him, for he had glimpsed the impossible, a love story that could span centuries, beginning with a single, unforgettable meeting. Ethan awoke the next morning in a small, rustic inn he had found nearby, the hum of the city of the past filtering through the wooden shutters. His mind replayed every detail of his encounter with Leela, the intelligence in her eyes, the subtle warmth of her smile, the grace with which she carried herself despite the strictures of her era. Determined to learn more about her world without alarming her, he ventured back into the streets, careful to observe without drawing undue attention. Every corner, every shop, every passerby was a lesson in the life of the past, yet his thoughts continually returned to Leela. She was not merely a girl from another time, she was a window into a world so different from his own, yet profoundly alive in ways he had never imagined. When he saw her again, by the fountain where they had first met, her reaction was a mixture of surprise and guarded curiosity. Leela had never encountered anyone like him before, a man whose mannerisms, clothing, and speech defied every convention she had known. Yet she did not recoil. Instead, she studied him, as though trying to decipher a puzzle, her mind both analytical and open. Ethan began to ask her questions about her daily life, her responsibilities, and her dreams, careful to avoid revealing the full extent of his origins. She spoke of her family, the expectations placed upon her, and her longing for freedom beyond the confines of her time. Each detail fascinated him, painting a vivid tapestry of a life that was both constrained and beautiful, harsh and tender, and he found himself drawn ever deeper into her world. As they wandered together through narrow streets and sun-dappled squares, Ethan began to notice how remarkably compatible their minds were, despite the centuries separating them. Leela's curiosity matched his own, her sense of adventure subtle yet potent, and her laughter carried a melody that seemed to echo across time itself. He felt an almost magnetic pull toward her, a connection that defied explanation, blending admiration, fascination, and the tentative stirrings of something far deeper. The awareness of the impossibility of their situation, a man from the future and a woman from the past, only heightened the intensity of their interactions, each word and gesture charged with an undercurrent of urgency and longing. Yet danger and uncertainty lurked beneath the beauty of their connection. Ethan knew that every action, every revelation could ripple across history in unforeseen ways, altering the future he came from and a life Leela had always known. The awareness of the consequences pressed against his conscience like a weight he could not ignore, but it could not diminish the exhilaration of their time together. Each shared glance, each brush of hands, each moment of laughter was a reminder that love, curiosity, and human connection could transcend even the strictest boundaries of time. He realized that Leela was no longer just a subject of fascination, she had become indispensable to him, a force that anchored him in this strange world while simultaneously pulling him into emotions he had never experienced before. As twilight fell and lanterns flickered to life along the cobblestone streets, Ethan and Leela found themselves seated on a quiet bench near the fountain, their conversation lingering in pauses as much as in words. The air between them was thick with unspoken thoughts, tentative desires, and the recognition that what they were building could never exist fully in either of their times without sacrifice. Yet the heart has its own logic, one that often defies reason, and both felt the pull of something larger than themselves, a connection that would shape their destinies, challenge their understanding of reality, and ultimately test the limits of courage, trust, and love. In that shared silence, amidst the flickering light and the murmur of distant voices, the first true bonds of their extraordinary story were forged. Ethan and Leela's connection had deepened beyond curiosity into something undeniably profound, laying the foundation for a story of love that could span centuries, yet would require courage, patience, and the willingness to challenge the very fabric of time itself. As the days passed, Ethan realized that his presence in Leela's era was more than a curiosity. It was a disruption, subtle yet undeniable. The townspeople began to notice his strange clothing, unfamiliar mannerisms, and peculiar vocabulary, murmurs of suspicion rippling through the streets. Leela herself began to worry, not about Ethan personally, but about the implications of having a man from the future in her life. She could feel the tension building, the invisible walls of societal expectation pressing in tighter, whispering warnings of scandal and danger. Ethan, too, felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Every action he took had consequences, not only for himself, but for Leela, her family, and the timeline he had disrupted simply by existing here. The thrill of discovery was now tempered by the gravity of potential catastrophe. Their bond, however, continued to grow, and with it came a complicated blend of longing and fear. Ethan taught Leela small glimpses of knowledge from the future, simple innovations, ideas, and curiosities, careful not to alter history in ways that could create paradoxes. Leela, in turn, shared the nuances of her world, the strict codes of conduct, the hidden rebellions of the heart, the unspoken rules that governed every gesture, word, and glance. Each exchange deepened their connection, but also heightened the tension. They both knew that their growing affection could not remain hidden forever, and yet neither could resist the pull of their hearts. Moments that should have been innocent, a hand brushed against hers, a shared smile in the corner of a crowded room, carried the weight of forbidden desire, each one a spark threatening to ignite a fire that could engulf them both. Then, one evening, a sudden event forced the reality of their situation into stark clarity. A carriage overturned in the bustling town square, and chaos erupted as people screamed and rushed to help. In the confusion, Leela's younger brother was caught in the commotion, his safety threatened by the panicked crowd. Without thinking, Ethan leapt forward, pulling the boy to safety with instinctive precision. The townspeople stared in awe and confusion at the strange man who moved with such skill, muttering about unknown origins and suspicious powers. Leela's heart raced, both with gratitude and fear. She realized that the danger of Ethan's presence was no longer hypothetical, it had arrived, tangible and undeniable. Their relationship was no longer simply a matter of curiosity or affection, it had become a matter of survival, trust, and courage. The incident forced them to confront an impossible truth. The connection that had blossomed between them was extraordinary, but their worlds were fundamentally incompatible. Ethan belonged to a time far beyond her own, with knowledge and technology she could barely comprehend, while Leela's life was rooted in the customs, expectations, and limitations of her era. Yet, in the face of these challenges, their hearts refused to let go. Every conversation, every shared glance, every quiet moment became more precious, more urgent, as the realization dawned that love alone would not be enough to bridge the chasm of centuries. They needed strategy, courage, and ingenuity, and perhaps a willingness to risk everything for the chance to be together. The stakes had escalated dramatically. Ethan and Leela's bond was undeniable, their emotions raw and compelling, yet the forces of society, history, and time itself threatened to pull them apart. The story had moved beyond a simple fascination with another era into a gripping narrative of love, danger, and the extraordinary lengths two people would go to preserve a connection that defied the boundaries of time. Every moment together was now precious, every decision monumental, and every heartbeat a reminder that destiny was both their ally and their greatest challenge. As the days turned into weeks, the tension between desire and duty grew unbearable for Ethan and Leela. What had begun as curiosity and fascination had blossomed into something much deeper, yet every moment together carried the weight of unspoken consequences. The townspeople were whispering more frequently now, their glances sharp with suspicion, and even Leela's family began to question her increasingly erratic behavior and fascination with Ethan, whose odd attire and foreign speech made him the subject of gossip and fear. Leela could sense the walls closing in. She loved Ethan, but she knew that their bond was extraordinary, fragile, and threatened by every step she took in this unfolding drama. Ethan, too, felt the crushing reality of their situation. His heart pulled him toward her, yet the delicate balance of history, safety, and morality demanded caution. One wrong move could irreparably alter her life or his own future. The first real crisis arrived unexpectedly. Leela's father discovered her frequent absences and, noticing her infatuation with the mysterious stranger, demanded that she end the association immediately. The pressure was overwhelming, a tangible force pushing her toward compliance, toward the life she had always known, one devoid of adventure, risk, or the intoxicating allure of love. Ethan, aware of the mounting danger, tried to convince her to flee with him temporarily, to seek a place outside the town where no rules could interfere with their connection. But Leela hesitated, torn between duty and desire, between obedience to her family and the burgeoning love that had transformed her very soul. Every decision carried consequences that stretched beyond the present moment, rippling through history, reshaping the lives of those around them. Meanwhile, small incidents reminded them of the fragility of their situation. An unexpected encounter with a merchant who had seen Ethan in the streets days before, a servant whispering warnings of unusual behavior, even a casual observation of children mimicking his strange gestures, all served as a stark reminder that their worlds were colliding in ways that could not be ignored. Each passing day brought urgency, a quiet but unrelenting pressure that forced them to confront the reality. Love alone might not be enough to survive the scrutiny, fear, and limitations imposed by time itself. Their bond was extraordinary yet exposed, and every heartbeat together carried the tension of discovery and potential disaster. In the quiet of the evening, under a sky streaked with fading sunset, Ethan and Leela shared a moment of stark vulnerability. Hands intertwined, eyes locked, they both understood that the choice they faced was monumental: to follow their hearts and risk everything, or to retreat into the safety of their respective times, potentially losing the connection that had ignited their very souls. Words were inadequate. Only the trembling of hands, the quickened heartbeat, and the longing in their eyes conveyed the depth of their predicament. The stakes had never been higher. Love was no longer a gentle pull. It was a force demanding courage, sacrifice, and a willingness to defy convention, reality, and time itself. Ethan and Leela's relationship had reached a crucible moment. The choice was clear, yet daunting: to fight for the extraordinary love they had discovered, or to yield to the constraints of society and the unyielding march of time. Their connection was undeniable, their emotions raw and consuming, yet the path forward was treacherous, fraught with challenges that would test not only their courage, but the very essence of their hearts. The story was poised on the edge of a turning point, where every decision carried the weight of destiny, and every heartbeat narked a step closer to union or irrevocable separation. With the weight of choice pressing on them, Ethan and Leela made a daring decision that would forever alter the course of their lives. Late one moonlit night, when the town was cloaked in silence and shadows danced across cobblestone streets, they met in secret near the edge of the forest that bordered the village. Ethan had prepared a plan, a temporary journey beyond the town's confines to a place where their connection could exist without fear of judgment or interference. Leela's heart raced as she followed him, every step a mixture of exhilaration and terror, the thrill of rebellion intertwined with the ache of leaving behind the familiar world she had always known. With each footfall, she felt the intensity of their bond grow, a tether stretching across time itself, pulling them together with irresistible force. The journey was not without obstacles. Forest paths twisted unpredictably, the sounds of nocturnal creatures echoing like whispers of warning. Shadows from flickering lanterns threatened to reveal them to any late-night traveler or patrolling guard, and the cool night air carried the scent of uncertainty. Yet with Ethan at her side, Leela felt invincible, their courage amplified by the trust and love that had been forged in secret. Each step was a testament to their commitment, each glance a silent vow that, despite the constraints of their eras, they would not be separated. Their dialogue flowed effortlessly, laughter mingling with whispered confessions of fear, hope, and longing, as the forest became both a sanctuary and a proving ground for their love. As dawn approached, they reached a secluded glade bathed in soft, golden light, the first rays illuminating the world in hues that seemed almost unreal. Here, removed from the rigid structures of time and society, Ethan and Leela allowed themselves the rare freedom to exist fully as themselves. They shared stories of their respective eras, the triumphs and trials of lives lived apart by centuries, and the peculiar joys and sorrows that had shaped their hearts. In this intimate setting, their emotions surged. Admiration deepened into affection, curiosity blossomed into desire, and fascination transformed into an undeniable, consuming love. The barriers imposed by time began to feel less insurmountable, replaced by the palpable strength of the bond that tethered their souls together. However, the forest was not merely a sanctuary, it was a crucible. A sudden rustle of leaves, a distant cry, reminded them that the world they had left behind was still very real, still capable of intrusion and chaos. Their hearts pounded, a mixture of adrenaline and apprehension, as they realized that their actions, while courageous, had consequences they could not yet fully comprehend. Yet even amidst the danger, the exhilaration of choice, of defiance, and of love's triumph over convention filled them with a heady, almost intoxicating sense of possibility. Every glance, every touch, every whispered word became more meaningful, infused with the understanding that moments such as these were fleeting yet transformative, capable of shaping the course of both their lives. Ethan and Leela had embraced the adventure and peril of their extraordinary connection, stepping fully into a journey that transcended eras, conventions, and expectations. Their love, tested by circumstance and risk, had proven resilient, and their commitment to one another had never been clearer. Each heartbeat resonated with purpose and passion, each shared glance a reminder of the extraordinary circumstances that had brought them together. The story now surged forward with urgency, the promise of further trials and triumphs looming on the horizon, and the certainty that their love, forged in both dream and reality, would be the force guiding them through the challenges yet to come.
The climax of their extraordinary journey arrived with the inevitability of fate itself. Ethan and Leela, having defied the constraints of time and society, now faced the ultimate test, the choice between the world they had known and the love they could no longer deny. News had reached Leela's family of her absences and mysterious companion, and tensions boiled to the surface. The townspeople, suspicious and fearful of the unknown, began to gather, whispers of scandal and impropriety spreading like wildfire. Yet Ethan and Leela remained steadfast, standing together in the secluded glade where they had first dared to embrace the impossible. In that sacred space, away from prying eyes and rigid rules, they confronted the reality that the love between them was no longer a fleeting indulgence, but a force powerful enough to challenge history itself. With the Chronos device in his possession, Ethan proposed a daring plan, one that could reconcile their worlds but required courage, trust, and an unwavering commitment. He explained that he could take Leela forward with him to the future, a world where societal constraints would not cage her spirit, where their love could exist without fear or judgment. The catch, however, was monumental. Once she left her era, her life, family, and everything she had ever known would be irrevocably changed. Leela's heart wavered, torn between the familiar comfort of the past and the irresistible promise of a future with Ethan. Yet as she looked into his eyes, so filled with hope, determination, and an unspoken understanding of the sacrifices required, she knew that love demanded risk, that destiny itself had brought them together across the centuries, and she could not let fear dictate the terms of their lives. The decision was made in silence, each heartbeat a drumbeat of resolve. Hand in hand, they activated the Chronos device, the air shimmering with light and energy as the past and future collided in a breathtaking spectacle.
Time itself seemed to bend around them, the very fabric of reality stretching and twisting as they were transported from the cobblestone streets of her era to the gleaming skyline of his time. The experience was overwhelming, the roar of the temporal winds, the dizzying kaleidoscope of images from centuries past and future, and the profound awareness of the choice they had made. Yet amidst the chaos, they clung to each other, the anchor of their love holding them steady as they stepped into a new world together. When the light finally faded, they found themselves in the heart of the city from Ethan's era, modern and vibrant, yet brimming with a sense of opportunity and freedom. Leela's eyes widened at the skyscrapers, the bustling streets, the marvels of technology, but most of all at the realization that she was here with Ethan, free to live, love, and explore a life they had chosen together. Every fear, every hesitation melted away as they embraced fully, their hearts beating in perfect harmony. They had traversed time, defied expectation, and emerged stronger, bound not by history or circumstance, but by the undeniable power of connection, courage, and devotion. In the days and months that followed, Ethan and Leela navigated this new life together, learning, laughing, and building a love that was both extraordinary and grounded in reality. The challenges of adapting to a new era, understanding unfamiliar customs, and reconciling her past with his present became shared adventures, moments that strengthened their bond rather than weakened it. Each day was a testament to the power of choice, of bravery, and of hearts willing to pursue love across impossible boundaries. Their story, once a fleeting dream, had become a living, breathing reality, a love that could endure across centuries, eras, and the unrelenting march of time. Ethan and Leela had achieved not only union, but transformation. Their love, tested by history, danger, and the constraints of two worlds, had emerged triumphant. They stood together, hand in hand, facing the future with confidence, passion, and the knowledge that destiny had brought them together, not to separate them, but to create a story of timeless devotion, a story that would endure far beyond the bounds of any single era, a story of two souls united against all odds.